What does running, doing homework, and playing Pictionary have in common? Happiness. Everything we do is geared towards happiness. We may run because it can help us live a healthy life, so we are not plagued by health concerns. We do our homework because it can help us get good grades and we can feel good about ourselves. We may play Pictionary surrounded by our friends because it's something that we genuinely believe makes us happy. These things all lead to happiness, but it may still be something that we struggle with. So, how do we fix that? This book holds the answer. Happy at Last by Richard O'Connor is broken into two parts. Part 1, Good at Being Miserable. 2, Contemporary Insanity, the Culture. 3, Innate Foolishness, the Brain. 4, Unnecessary Misery, the Mind. And then part 2 is Practicing Happiness. 5, A New Pilot. 6, Less Misery. 7, More Joy. 8, More Satisfaction. 9, Grief and Pain. 10, The Meaning of Life. And 11, Staying Happy, to wrap it all up. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Contemporary insanity. Society forces us to live in a way that we are not intended to live like. We are sleep deprived, we have artificial light that messes with us, long work weeks, and we are isolated from the natural world and from our families. Another thing that is wrong with society is consumerism. We believe that more is better. That's why we always want more money, because that's a social status. And the thing is, when we want more, the more we want, the more we want. It's a bad cycle. Innate foolishness. Our brains were wired for survival, not for happiness. We believe that getting what we want will make us happy, even if it isn't true. Unnecessary misery. Emotions like anger, guilt, and shame can be hard to process, so we distort reality with defense mechanisms. Some of them include denial, or not feeling your feelings, and therefore not seeing the consequences of your actions, dissociation, or a temporary lapse in consciousness, so you're not aware of what you did, projection, attributing your own feelings to someone else, passive aggression, getting others to express your anger by being controlling, negligent, or lazy, isolation of affect slash intellectualization, feelings and experiences in impersonal, intellectualized way. Well, no. Feelings are experienced in an impersonal, intellectualized way. And expressing your feelings equals a major outburst, so this could lead to you being very cold, rigid, or lonely. Rationalization, using faulty reasoning to justify unacceptable behavior, attitudes, or beliefs. This supports your bad habits. Procrastination, putting things off until the last minute. I think we all know this one pretty well. Somatization, emotion not felt in your conscious mind, but is expressed in your body. For example, let's say you're stressed, and let's say maybe your stomach hurts, but you're not aware that you're stressed. But yeah, practicing happiness. You know that voice in your head that's always judging you? That's the inner critic. And there's also another voice in your head that tries to fight off this inner critic. This voice is known as the timid defender. It wants to silence the inner critic by using defense mechanisms, which isn't very good because it only gives your inner critic more ammunition to use against it. So, how do you leave a situation like this? Seems like a pretty unfair fight. You need to learn to use compassionate curiosity. Compassionate, as in patience, gentleness, love, grace, mercy, concern. That's the definition of compassion. Curiosity, as in being detached from the emotional heat, trying to understand what we feel and why. And this can be done by being mindful. And being mindful is basically when you're using your mind in a new, conscious, and deliberate way. This requires metacognitive awareness, or the ability to see all your thoughts and feelings but not get involved in them. So being able to observe them. And this keeps a larger picture of your values and your goals. That's what mindfulness is. Less misery. Sometimes you have to accept that you can't feel better. Think of it like this. Imagine you're feeling really sad. Now try as hard as you can to feel better. Are you trying? You probably are. But are you feeling better? Probably not. Because sometimes you really just can't. You can't force yourself to feel better. It's an emotion you have to experience. So basically what I mean is that the more you try to control it, the more it controls you. That doesn't make any sense. But it's like if you tell yourself, don't think of a pink elephant, that's going to be the thing that keeps coming up and it keeps reminding you of it. So if you keep thinking about not being sad, you're going to keep being reminded that you are sad. And this can make you get stuck. But your brain also has other ways of getting stuck, like cognitive errors, catastrophizing. If blank happens, it'll be a disaster. For example, if I fail my math test, my grade will never come up again. This is basically imagining the worst case scenario. Everything has to be perfect or else. This is perfectionism. Basically, you're focusing more on the details than you are on the actual meaning of what you're doing, and because of that, what you're doing loses the substance. I have to be liked by everyone, also known as people pleasing. I can't live without you. You're giving power to the other person who's in the relationship with you, which is not good. I'm defective, damaged, or inadequate. This is basically you believing that there's something inherently wrong with you. I personally struggle with this one a lot. I have to look like everyone else. Maybe you've been conditioned to believe that, but there's nothing wrong with being different. And everyone does it. This is you trying to rationalize your unacceptable behavior. And obviously it doesn't work. And then there are logical errors. Overgeneralization is one of them. You just assume that, let's say chocolate. You had one piece of chocolate. This chocolate is bad. All chocolate is bad. But that's overgeneralizing. Selective attention / disqualifying positive or negative. And selective responsibility. This is kind of like, depressed people could just take responsibility for the bad events that happen in their life, but not for the good events that happen in their life. Assuming temporal casualty. The source of superstition. Basically is saying, because I wore these cleats to my soccer game and I won, I have to wear the same cleats every time because that's how I'm going to win. Excessive self-reference. It's really all about me. Is it? Not really. Black and white thinking. Basically, there's no gray area. This person's a bad person. This person's a good person. That's not how it works, obviously. And emotional reasoning. Basically using flawed reasoning to explain why things happen. More joy. I think the biggest thing that I got from this book is this little piece of knowledge. Happiness is not normal and it's not supposed to be easy because I think we're conditioned to believe that it is, even though it clearly isn't. So, from this chapter, the one thing I took was one thing that you can try. At the end of every day, write down 3 things that were good about today. It can be like things you're grateful for. That's how I would categorize it. And then because it's written down, you can refer back to it later and you can see patterns of what makes you happy and maybe what you may need to change. Like maybe you think about food too often. I don't know. That's an example. Or you can do the lazy version, which is basically you think about 3 things, good things that happen in the day at night. And yeah, being happy also means having less negative emotions. Stress is a negative emotion, and it's pretty common. So, how do you deal with it? Exercise. This gives you endorphins, which are basically the chemical messengers of good feelings in your nervous system. And the thing is, even if you might hate it, once you're past 5 minutes, the negative anticipation of how bad it is or how bad you think it's going to be goes away, and you're good for a while. Physical skills. It could be like sports. Nutrition. Eating less processed foods and eating mindfully, like savoring your food, not like gobbling it down, inhaling it, like I don't know. And play. Spontaneous, and it's in the moment. This is actually pretty important, and adults often don't do it anymore because we think of it as a thing for kids. Creativity. This is like exposing yourself to new things. This could be art, reading good books, puzzles, having stimulating conversations, listening to good music, looking for challenges in your work. And I think it's important to remember the biggest thing is, let me look at my notes right now. Happiness is found in the small things. Like maybe you had a really good grilled cheese, or maybe the sun just looks really nice, like it's a nice sunset. Like sometimes we make happiness like way bigger than it actually is, and it's really just about being in the moment, if you ask me at least. More satisfaction. Relationships are very important to your happiness because others loving and supporting you is really important, and also you loving and supporting them is important for your character. Grief and pain. Even though being happy typically means having less negative emotions, it also requires you to feel your negative emotions when it is needed. And sometimes this means that you just have to be sad. And part of this could be having to accept painful memories. And you can do this by 1, forgiveness. You did the best that you could with what knowledge you had at that time. So forgive yourself. Step 2, gratitude. You can be grateful that you had that experience. Step 3, determination. It basically means that you don't want to make the same mistake again because that's what you got from the lesson you learned. But while negative emotions are very normal, they are definitely hard to deal with. So we fall into common traps that basically brainwash us into thinking that we can gain relief from the suffering, except we can't. Some of these include stuffing. This could be like denying pain, pretending that it doesn't matter, or moving on too quickly. And blaming. Blaming is an expression of anger, and it's different from responsibility because you're not saying that this person is responsible, you're just expressing your anger. And obsessing. It's like if only, basically all the ifs, and giving in to fear. I can't fill in the blank, something. You can't do something. Or turning to alcohol or drugs. Not a good idea. The important thing to remember here is that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Because trauma can actually lead to growth. Because it teaches us that our coping mechanisms don't work and that we need new ones. So, to deal with this, we can work on telling the truth, the brutally honest truth. And we can make permanent but necessary changes, like gaining good coping mechanisms. And you can learn mindfulness, you can find your values and use them, and have compassion for yourself. And you can make a contribution to the world. That's also an option, at least. That is definitely one of the harder ones, but it's in there, that's for sure. Meaning of life. This is definitely a tough one, but scientist Carol D. Riff comes up with 6 main points that are generally present when someone is genuinely happy. 1. Self-acceptance. 2. Positive relations to others, like relationships. And 3. Autonomy, which is being able to make your own decisions, your own choices. 4. Environmental mastery, the ability to advance in your world or be able to change it to fit your needs. And 5, purpose in life. And 6 is personal growth. Staying happy. Remember that we live in a world that we were not made for, which makes us anxious, depressed, and stressed. And getting what we want makes us happy, or at least this is what we believe. However, it's not how it works. So you can work on wanting what you have. Then learn what makes you feel good and do more of it. And learn what makes you feel bad and do less of it. And remember that happiness is not supposed to be easy, even if that's what we all believe. And be mindful and aware of all the beauty around you. There might be more than you're seeing right now. Because happiness is in the small things. Caitlin, signing off.